I felt that if you push things too far, you will always create an equal and opposite reaction, which is exactly what's happened. Damaging nature by not understanding how much we depend.
What if the quietest corner of the British royal estate just became the center of the loudest scandal in years? Because early this morning, something happened at Sandringham estate that palace insiders are already calling the moment the royal doors literally slammed shut.
No press notice. No royal announcement.
No polite palace statement written in the usual velvet glove language. Instead, a black car rolled through the gates just after sunrise. Out stepped a lawyer representing none other than King Charles III, carrying a sealed legal order that would trigger one of the most awkward royal standoffs the monarchy has seen in decades. And within minutes, an entire wing of Sandringham was locked down. Keys revoked. Doors sealed. Staff ordered to step away. But here's the part that has the palace corridors buzzing like a broken espresso machine. The person suddenly blocked from entering that wing wasn't a tourist, wasn't a staff member, and definitely wasn't an intruder.
It was the Queen herself.
Yes, Queen Camilla. So the question exploding across royal circles tonight is simple and extremely uncomfortable. Why would the king's own legal team seal off a royal residence from the queen consort? Was this a quiet property dispute, or the desperate containment of a scandal the palace hoped would never reach daylight? Because according to whispers circulating among royal aides, this isn't just about a building. It's about documents, secrets, and a controversy that could shake the House of Windsor harder than anyone expected. And if even half of what insiders are claiming is true, the royal family may have just locked a door that was never meant to be opened.
Stay with me.
Because what investigators believe happened inside Sandringham is far stranger than anyone imagined. The moment the heavy doors of the north wing were sealed at Sandringham estate, a quiet ripple began spreading through the royal household. At first, it was just whispers among estate staff. A confused housekeeper asking why access cards had suddenly stopped working. A security officer quietly replacing the locks. A senior aide walking down the corridor with a kind of tense expression that signals something much bigger is unfolding behind closed doors. And at the center of it all stood the name that has shaped the modern monarchy for decades, King Charles III. Now, to understand why the king's legal team would suddenly seal an entire wing of his own estate, you have to understand the long, complicated, and sometimes painfully awkward history surrounding the woman now caught in the middle of the storm, Queen Camilla. For years, Camilla's journey into the royal family has been anything but simple. Once viewed by large sections of the public as the outsider who disrupted the marriage between Charles and Princess Diana, she spent decades slowly rebuilding her public image.
Careful appearances. Controlled interviews. Charity work.
The strategy was simple: patience and silence. Eventually, that strategy worked. By the time Charles ascended the throne after the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, Camilla had transformed from the most controversial figure in the royal orbit into the officially recognized queen consort. But inside palace walls, acceptance has always been more complicated than public headlines suggest. Several insiders have long hinted that tensions within the House of Windsor never fully disappeared. Different branches of the family, old loyalties, lingering resentments, these things rarely vanish just because a title changes. And according to a former palace staff member who spoke anonymously to royal commentators earlier this week, the Sandringham incident may have been the moment when years of quiet tension finally boiled over. People assume royal life is calm and polite, the source allegedly said. But behind the scenes, there are power struggles just like anywhere else, only here they involve centuries of tradition and billions in property. That tension had been quietly building for months. Reports had already surfaced that Camilla was planning an extended private stay at Sandringham, intending to convert part of the estate's north wing into a more permanent retreat, an area known for its privacy, thick gardens, and distance from the main residence. Normally, such arrangements happen quietly.
A few staff changes.
A few rooms redecorated.
Nothing dramatic.
But this time, something went very wrong. According to leaked chatter from palace insiders circulating across royal commentary forums late last night, the king's legal advisors suddenly intervened after reviewing documents connected to the planned renovation of the North Wing. What they allegedly discovered triggered immediate action. Within hours, the legal order was drafted. And by early morning, the king's lawyer arrived at the estate carrying a sealed directive. Witnesses claimed the atmosphere outside the North Wing changed instantly. Security teams were called in. Staff members were asked to leave the area. Maintenance workers were abruptly dismissed mid-task. Then came the moment that stunned everyone watching. The official seal was placed on the doors. Inside the palace communications office, confusion turned into panic. Several aides reportedly began calling senior administrators in London, trying to understand what had just happened. One anonymous staff member later claimed that a short message began circulating privately among certain palace phones. Stop all access to the North Wing.
Legal review in progress.
No exceptions. No exceptions. Not even for the Queen. Within minutes, the rumor began spreading through the estate like wildfire. The order had not come from security.
It had not come from estate management.
It had come directly through the legal office representing the monarch himself. And that meant one thing.
This wasn't a scheduling issue. It wasn't a renovation delay. It wasn't even a family disagreement. Something serious had been discovered.
Something serious enough that King Charles III was willing to legally seal part of his own residence before the situation could spiral further. By midday, the story had already begun leaking beyond the estate walls. Royal watchers on social media were speculating wildly. One viral post read, "Why would a king block his own queen from entering a royal wing?
Something big is happening."
Another user wrote, "This feels like the start of a royal thriller." And perhaps the most telling reaction came from a former palace insider who simply posted a cryptic line that quickly began trending in royal gossip circles. Sandringham has many locked rooms.
Some of them were never meant to be opened again. By the afternoon, one thing had become painfully clear.
This wasn't just a misunderstanding about property access. This was the opening move in a royal scandal that had been quietly building for years. And the next revelation would make the entire situation far more explosive than anyone inside the palace had expected. Inside the royal estate, the sealed doors of the North Wing were already enough to create tension. But what happened next is what turned a quiet legal dispute into a full-blown public spectacle. Because only hours after the wing was locked down at Sandringham Estate, a second revelation began circulating among royal reporters in London. And this one changed everything. According to documents allegedly reviewed by a legal assistant connected to the case, the emergency order signed by advisors representing King Charles III wasn't just about access to the building.
It was about what might already be inside it.
Yes, inside. The North Wing wasn't simply being reserved or renovated. It was being secured. A source claiming to have seen part of the internal briefing described the situation in one chilling sentence. "Until the contents of the room are verified, no entry can be permitted." The contents of the room. Naturally, the moment those words leaked, the internet did what the internet always does.
It exploded.
Within minutes, royal commentators on social media began posting theories about what could possibly be hidden inside the sealed wing.
Some claimed it involved confidential estate records.
Others suggested financial documents tied to royal property management. But one theory quickly began trending above all the rest. A viral thread posted on X read, "Why would the king's lawyer rush to seal a royal wing unless something damaging was about to surface?" Another post went even further. Either someone inside the palace made a massive mistake, or someone tried to hide one. Within 2 hours, the phrase Sandringham lockdown was trending globally. Royal commentators began appearing on television panels trying to explain the situation, but their answers only created more questions. One media analyst stated on air, "This is extremely unusual. Royal estates don't get sealed by legal order unless something serious is under review." Meanwhile, supporters of Queen Camilla began pushing back hard online. One trending post from a well-known royal fan account read, "Camilla has spent years rebuilding her reputation. The idea that she'd be involved in some scandal at Sandringham makes no sense." But critics were not convinced. Another viral comment replied, "Reputation and reality are two very different things inside royal walls." The debate quickly turned into a digital battlefield. Some people defended Camilla fiercely, arguing that palace insiders were likely leaking exaggerated rumors. Others insisted the lockdown itself proved something serious had happened behind closed doors. Then came the moment that pushed the story into overdrive. A well-known British television personality posted a cryptic message late that evening, "Been hearing interesting things about Sandringham today. If even half of it is true, tomorrow will be very uncomfortable for the palace." The post received nearly 1 million views within an hour. News organizations began preparing special segments. Royal correspondents rushed to contact palace officials for clarification. But the palace communications office remained completely silent. No statements. No denials. Nothing. And as night began to fall over the quiet grounds of Sandringham, reporters gathered outside the estate gates hoping for answers. Instead, what they witnessed raised even more questions. Because just before sunset, another black vehicle quietly entered the estate. No press notice. No explanation. But according to witnesses standing near the gates, the person stepping out of the car wasn't a royal family member. It was another lawyer. And this one, according to an estate employee who briefly spoke to reporters, wasn't arriving to seal anything.
He was arriving to review what had already been found inside.
Which leads to the question that suddenly everyone, from palace staff to millions of viewers online, is asking tonight. What exactly is hidden inside that locked wing at Sandringham? And why is the palace suddenly treating it like evidence in a case no one is willing to talk about? As darkness settled over the quiet countryside surrounding Sandringham estate, the tension that had been building all day reached a level no one inside the palace could ignore.
Reporters were still gathered outside the gates.
Royal watchers online were refreshing their feeds every few seconds. And inside the estate, lights were suddenly turning on in a part of the north wing that had been sealed just hours earlier.
Something was happening.
But what happened next is the twist that turned a strange royal lockdown into something far more dramatic. Because according to two estate staff members who spoke anonymously to royal commentators late that night, the second lawyer who arrived at Sandringham wasn't simply there to inspect paperwork.
He was there to verify the contents of a locked room.
And that room, according to the whispers now racing through palace corridors, may contain something that could completely change the narrative surrounding this entire scandal. One insider allegedly described the moment in a message that quickly began circulating through royal gossip forums.
They didn't just seal the wing, the message claimed.
They sealed the archive room.
An archive room. Now, at first glance that might not sound dramatic.
Royal estates are filled with old documents, photographs, and records stretching back centuries. But here's where the story becomes far more complicated. Several commentators familiar with the internal layout of Sandringham claim the north wing includes a small private records chamber believed to contain correspondence and estate documents dating back to the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. And if those rumors are accurate, then the legal order issued earlier in the day might not have been about renovations, access disputes, or even a simple misunderstanding.
It might have been about protecting whatever is stored inside that room.
Late last night, a well-known royal historian posted a short message that instantly reignited speculation online. If the archive room at Sandringham is involved, the historian wrote, then this situation could be much bigger than a family disagreement. Within minutes, the comments spread across social media. Some users suggested the room might contain private financial records. Others speculated it could hold sensitive royal correspondence. And of course, the most dramatic theories began suggesting something even more explosive. Documents that certain members of the royal household might prefer never to see daylight. Meanwhile, supporters of Queen Camilla continue defending her online, insisting that the entire situation was being exaggerated by gossip accounts chasing viral headlines. But critics pointed to one detail they say cannot be ignored. The order to seal the wing came through legal representatives tied directly to King Charles III himself.
Which raises a question that no palace spokesperson has answered yet.
Why would the king's own legal team move so quickly and so quietly to secure part of his private estate?
Was it simply a precaution?
Or had something already been discovered that forced the palace to act before the situation spiraled out of control? As of tonight, no official statement has been released.
The sealed doors remain closed. Security around the north wing has reportedly been increased.
And insiders claim additional legal advisors may already be on their way to Sandringham for what one anonymous source described as a review that could take days. But perhaps the most unsettling detail came from a royal correspondent who spoke briefly with a palace employee late this evening. When asked whether the situation would be resolved quickly, the employee reportedly shook their head and replied with a sentence that has now begun spreading across social media like wildfire. This isn't the end of the story. In fact, according to multiple sources watching the situation closely, the events that unfolded at Sandringham today may only be the first chapter in a controversy that could grow far larger in the days ahead. And if new information does emerge from behind those sealed doors, the royal family may soon find itself facing questions it never expected to answer tonight. The gates of Sandringham estate are quiet again.
The reporters have mostly gone home. The cameras are gone.
And from the outside, everything looks exactly the way a royal estate is supposed to look: calm, private, untouched by controversy. But behind those trees and stone walls, one wing of the estate is still sealed. The locks remain in place. Security patrols are still circling the area. And somewhere inside that north wing, a room full of documents may hold answers that the public has not yet heard. Which raises the question everyone watching this story is now asking. What exactly was important enough for lawyers connected to King Charles III to step in so suddenly? Why was the decision made so quickly and so quietly? And why, according to insiders, was access suddenly restricted even to people close to Queen Camilla?
Was it simply a precaution?
Or did someone inside the palace discover something they didn't expect to find? Because if the rumors about the sealed archive room are even partially true, then what happened at Sandringham today might not just be a minor royal misunderstanding. It could be the beginning of a much bigger story, one involving documents, decisions, and secrets that have been sitting quietly behind palace walls for years. And if those documents ever become public, the fallout could reach far beyond one estate or one wing of a building. It could raise questions about how the modern monarchy operates behind closed doors.
But for now, the doors remain shut. The palace remains silent. And the mystery surrounding Sandringham continues to grow.
So what do you think is really happening inside that sealed wing? Is this just another overblown royal rumor, or is the palace trying to keep something much bigger from reaching the public?
Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
And if you want more deep dives into the stories the headlines barely touch, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because the moment new details emerge from Sandringham, we'll be here to break it all down. Trust me, this story isn't finished yet.